Okay, so I've been having had another dream this morning, and I haven't dreamt this much. Um, so I'm recording them and trying to talk about them as much as possible. This one was crazy. Last night, this morning, I had a dream that I had. Well, I was being chased by someone. Me and my family were being chased by someone, like me and my aunt, and she is the elder aunt in the family on my mother's side. Um, Me and her were being chased, and I developed USB C, like, or USB 2.0 spiderweb power. So essentially, I turned into Spider Man, and um, and I don't really watch a lot of Spider Man, like cartoony or superhero stuff. Um, but from my wrist came a USB cable, and it stuck to the ceiling, this very tall ceiling. It was like a city that was inside, but it was made out of plaster of Paris, like plaster, and I shot this USB. It was about, maybe from what I could see in the dream, about 5 stories. It was up there, but it was a ceiling for sure, but what felt like outside. And I, because in the distance you could see like rain, you could see, I saw like it was nighttime, midnight, and this outside city made out of plaster, like it was painted, what paint you would use on the inside of a home. But shot this USB cable out of my wrist, grabbed my aunt in my left arm, and we both swung up and got away from. I couldn't see what was chasing us, but I knew we were being chased. And I swung us up on top of a building, and I jumped down and I swing. And every time I shot this USB cable out of my wrist, it attached to plaster in the ceiling, and it actually held me up. I didn't think it was going to hold me up, so it was weird. And swung into the night and through the city, and I ended up at a building, at a house, and this house had, it was like, well, first, and then to mention, my aunt happened to be there, which is crazy, but I didn't question in the dream like how she got from off top of that building and got way over there. Okay, just to chime in for a second, I noticed that that is a reoccurring theme in my dreams, where a person, like the previous dream, Sam Jackson, was at the what seemed like a family home before I got there, even though we left the place seemingly at the same time. My aunt, in this dream today, this morning or last night, she was at the building that I was headed to after I had just dropped her off, or saved her and put her on top of a tall building. So she was already at the house, the destination that I was going to. So I'm not sure what that means. It's a reoccurring theme that I'm noticing in my dreams. Um, but yeah, if you have any opinions or thoughts about these videos or my dreams, if you're having these kind of dreams, or you can let me know if I'm sharing too much. I usually feel like I gauge, if there's something that's too private, I won't share it. But yeah, just let me know in the comments below. But yeah, back to the dream. But I get to this house, and I go into the back to go lay down, and my aunt is there, and she's laying in there. And in real life, this aunt doesn't have she's not married, but In this dream, she was married, and she had a significant other, rather, not married. I wasn't sure if it was married or they were married or not. It felt like a long relationship, like she had known this person for a long time. But I couldn't see his face. But I saw that they were in the room, together. Like she was walking around, he was laying down. The TV was on. It was like a regular, like, it's like we lived in this house, but it was multiple rooms in this house. Like this was like a 7, 8, 9 bedroom house. Pretty nice house, but not overly, it seemed like regular, but it was a big house. And at one point, I remember my uncle running. I heard him upstairs running, but I didn't know why he was running. And suddenly, through the door comes this big flood. But like I'm not sure if he saw what was going on outside and was panicky. I'm not sure, but he didn't say anything. All I know is that in came this water, and there was this creature. I just remember it being a creature that I could grab and use as a pair of scissors from top to bottom. So you could pinch this thing's legs closer together with the tail, and then the mouth will open. I used that feature in this creature to grab another one of those creatures that had flowed in with that flood, and it pinched it. It grabbed it in its mouth, and this is a big creature, like like maybe the size of like the length of a maybe king size, queen size bed, and but not that wide though. It was maybe about 2 to 3 feet wide, and I'm clamping him, using him to clamp another creature like him. They look like alligators, but I'm not sure. But I used him to clamp down on that one, and I threw them both outside, and they hit the door, and the door swung open. Like the door was halfway open, but the way I threw them, it pursed the rest of the door open. It pursed the door open the rest of the way. Like I almost broke the door. I thought I was going to break the door. That was my fear, that I wouldn't be able to close the door, stop the water flow, and stop them from coming back in. But I was able to close the door, and the rest of that flow water flowed out the other side of the house. And when the flood came down in the house, and my aunt was panicking, her significant other was panicking, and I was like, it's all right, y'all, it's okay. And I also want to chime in on this portion. At this point, the flood water is now like ankle high. When it first came in, it was like chest high. And at that point, I had heard my uncle upstairs running around. He never said anything. He didn't scream or anything. I just heard him like a panic run. I heard his feet stamping the ground upstairs, and then in comes the flood. But yeah, just to give you a visual of where the water started at chest level, and then it started at ankle, or it ended at ankle level after I had closed the door, and the water drained out the back door. But yeah, back to the dream. They went back into the room to start organizing their stuff, to fix their stuff, clean up the flood, the mess the flood had made. There was socks on the ground. There were toys under the flood, like blocks and little action figures. There were socks, like clothes and stuff. And it went down. The flood goes down, flows out the back door. I closed that door, which was weird. It was a big flood. In real life, a big flood would, if it came through the front door the way that it did in that dream, it would be available on the back door. Like the flood would try to rush in through the back door, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure why it was that way, but yeah, closed the back door after it opened and drained all that out. I didn't open the back door. But yeah, it all drained out, and I don't know. About it. It was insane. Oh, and then I don't know if I mentioned this, but I was also offered candy, 2 big handfuls of candy by this guy who came up to the door, and he had braids in his hair. He's wearing a suit, and he was holding a bunch of Werther Originals, from what I could remember. Like, I haven't eaten candy in a while, but I mean, I remember what candy, that he was handing me, but it didn't look like regular Werther Originals. It was like round, so I'm thinking it was my brain perceived it as like, butterscotch Werther Original type of candy, but me looking back, or me in the dream was trying to figure out what kind of candy it was. I'm thinking it was the Rocher. I forgot what it's called, the French candy, or that fancy the Rocher truffles or something. I gotta find the name of it, but okay, after I did a little search, it turns out that this is the candy that I saw in the dream, and he had it like cuffed in his hands, a good like maybe 30 of those in his hand in like a pile, but it was held together perfectly in his hand. Looking at that candy, it would, some of it would have fell out of his hand, but it didn't. It was in a sphere, a big sphere, like the size of a small volleyball or something. The way that he was holding it in his hand, but yeah, he had offered me that. I thought it was where the original, because of the gold wrapper, but I was also aware that in the dream that each piece of candy was a sphere, and they were being held together in a bigger sphere, like I said, in the size of a small volleyball in his hand. So Ferrero Rocher is what it's pronounced, but yeah, back to the dream. But yeah, he handed me a bunch of those, and that uncle that I heard, I perceived it was my uncle running around, upstairs, but I hadn't seen him. I hadn't seen the uncle, but I knew it was him upstairs running around. As that person knocked at the door, he slipped down the steps. Like he was running at the top couple of steps, and then he slipped and just was straight sliding down the steps after that point, and then got back up. And he didn't fall or hurt himself. It looked scary. Like I thought he had probably hurt himself, but he popped. He was running, slid, and then popped up like he meant to do it almost. But it also seemed like an accident, like he slipped. But yeah, and then he came to the door, and I walked away. I went to the back to check on my aunt and that person, and that was it. But yeah, weird dream. Okay, that's it for today. Me talking about my weird USB Spider-Man flood in a house, which was in a indoor city dream. I don't know, but yeah, as said before, this is the channel for journal, diary style entries. I will talk about my dreams more and more as I have them, but yeah, feel free to comment if you want. God bless.